Hey there, chicken. What's up, buddy?
Hello, Dak. How are you?
Oh, just doing my thing. Welcome to the first QuickSnips, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Honor and privilege.
Yeah, you should be honored in my presence. It's okay. Anyways, really, could you imagine if I was actually like that in the podcast, just like overly facetious and with way more, confidence than deserved?
Yeah, I don't have to imagine it. I get it all the time we converse outside the podcast. So yeah, it's just, par for the course.
Well, I mean, you're welcome for texting you, peasant, but, yeah, well, welcome to the first QuickSnips, like I said. This is the little spoilers thing that we're going to be doing outside of the podcast. That way we don't ruin if you guys missed out on stuff. So, of course, spoiler warning ahead. But yeah, you've spent a lot more time in Destiny than I have recently. And I got on Twitter this morning and saw that apparently the entire fucking world was burning down, because of whatever's happening at Bungie. So you want to give a little preview as to the shit show that's going on there?
Yeah, so back in August, they had their big reveal for the next big expansion, their annual kind of reboot of the game, so to speak. It's going to be the final chapter and the culmination of 10 years of this game coming together, and everyone's getting all hyped. And then they released the new season that day, and the new season, which we're currently in right now, which is sort of like usually a 3-month long chapter of the game, has been really spectacular so far. So the game was riding a high right now, right? And unfortunately today, seemingly out of the blue, massive layoffs were happening at Bungie. And on top of that, they also delayed the release of that next new expansion. It's was supposed to be in, I believe, February. They pushed it back to June, which kicks it out of Sony's reporting for the current fiscal year. So a lot of big things happening at Bungie. So right now they have 2 community managers, or I should say that they had 2, and they are both no longer employed by Bungie. Yeah, it's pretty wild. A lot of the big recognizable names. I mean, Liana was very vocal on Twitter and, in tune with the community and a big part of this game. I mean, we can dive into it, but, one of Bungie's like hallmarks, especially with the game Destiny, is its, connection with its community, and firing the 2 community managers is sort of, frankly, jaw-dropping. I'm really shocked.
Especially for a live service game. That seems like such a wild thing to do. Like, I don't know. I mean, before we dive too deep into that, man, though, I think we should go back to the first little bit there. A lot of the things that you just described to me kind of sound like Bungie's having some cash flow issues. I mean, you and I both have dealt with business and that, mindset, and dealt with business in that capacity. What do you think? I mean, that kind of sounds like they're really having some financial issues if they have to get this massive buyout that they say isn't going to affect layoffs, and then it does affect layoffs, and they start cutting like really key positions.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. It's you got to make tough decisions, right? You can't keep everyone employed forever, and it'd be great, but so from a strictly business, black and white world, I kind of get it, but it's so shocking going into the end of this game that they keep telling us is going to live on in perpetuity. And like Sony's acquisition of Bungie was the whole idea of expanding their live service game universe, because that's kind of where the gaming world is going, and then laying off all the people that work at said company they just acquired, because there's not a lot of IP there, right? Because Destiny's winding down, and Marathon upcoming, they have another game that they're in development of, and as it's years to get a game off the ground. But that's another thing, by the way. I didn't mention that, but Marathon got pushed to 2025 as well. It's another thing that got pushed out. So I mean, it's a little confounding. If Sony's this massive company, it seems like a small amount of money could be thrown at this thing that could really get it rolling and off the ground. And you never want to throw good money after bad. That's a business decision I'm all in favor of, but this is becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you're going to strip the game or the developer of community managers and of development talent, then the game's going to suffer, and people aren't going to want to buy it because they're not going to enjoy the process or the experience that they're getting, and it just ends up folding in on itself. And this is like completely out of the blue. We heard no rumblings. I mean, when is a company ever going to come out and say, yes, we're having trouble and we might be facing layoffs? Like, they never want to do that to their workforce. It's bad for morale. When you talk about self-fulfilling prophecies, but like, this is horrible. I can only imagine what it's like still being an employee there. I mean, you got to feel like you're at any point, the other shoe could drop and you could be looking for a job.
And I think that's what's just most insane, and especially with keeping in mind what the former community manager Dylan DMG has said. Like, it's hard not to really read behind the lines. It's hard not to read between the lines with that shit, and really not to view it kind of at face value as just total mismanagement. I mean, I don't know, man. I know that, like, I'm the most pessimistic of, like, our friend group that kind of started in Destiny. But I think for me, it is kind of sad. Like, I really did love the game, and you guys know how freaking much I played, to the point where I'm like, hey, you guys on? Hey, you guys on? But it's disheartening to feel like all of the effort that we put into the game and all of the effort that the devs put into the game still somehow falls flat. And I can't really put my finger on it, but it almost feels like the people that really drove... I don't know, like, it's hard not to look at all the people that have shuttered out, or the people that have been laid off, or the people that have quit, and not say that, like, maybe they actually had a voice to help make the quality of the product just so much better. And it's also sad because, I mean, clearly, like, Lightfall was just kind of a flop, and it probably put a lot of extra stress on all of the devs and everybody behind the studio, because not only did they have to push the big expansion that they wanted to give us, but then they also had to shoehorn in this, whack-a-mole, kind of fake expansion just to get us content in between. And they've done it, efficiently in other areas with, like, the 30th anniversary edition and everything, but they just kind of fell flat with Lightfall. And then now with all of this, like, this is probably going to be shaking for the game, where I really do think a lot of people are going to be leaving the playing space. I mean, it would be interesting to sit here and see what Steam's statistics are and what the game is like right now.
I can't imagine it's good, and this is not going to do well. I mean, like I said, one of Bungie's hallmarks was the connectivity to their community. And I mean, I will say that this is, if the Destiny Reddit is like a cesspool of negativity, it's horrendous. I purposely avoid it because I only go there for, like, very pointed questions about, like, how do you achieve certain goal, or, like, is there some better loadout? Because if you go on just the, r/Destiny, the game, it's just nonstop negativity. And I think that those kind of sentiments have negatively impacted the game as a whole. I mean, Astacross's video, he's a content creator for the game, and he's been very vocal. He's a pretty neutral observer, but he had a couple very negative videos that came out this year. One of the main ones was the over monetization of the game, and I think he had a lot of valid points. I think he was kind of stretching it a little bit. It's kind of like, these events, like right now we're in the Halloween event, and they kind of pump out a bunch of, like, really cool just aesthetic things. It's just like your spaceship that you don't use in any sort of combat or anything, and outfits and things like that for your character that really don't impact gameplay at all. And there's a complaint that basically they spend too much dev time on making stuff that makes money and not enough on the gameplay and yada yada. But at the end of the day, the game is still awesome and it's still fun to play. And you don't have to buy any of these things if you don't want to. And so I thought stuff like those complaints like that were a little overblown, but then the community just, like, latches onto it and goes berserk. And then, it get all this negative sentiment, and then you get the issues with the threats on the community managers and all that, and on the devs, on Twitter. It's all these, like, insane things kind of culminating right now. It's a pretty wild time.
It is, and it's just sad to see that, all these devs that really, especially because they've done a lot of hiring recently, which means you've got people who really freaking love the game, who then wanted to make this their dream job. I mean, that's the saddest part, man. Like, these devs, all of them love working for Bungie for the most part, And I mean, I should say, at least over the past few years, they've really loved working for Bungie. And it's sad to see that, now they're laid off from something that is like their dream job, something they just really, really love doing. It's kind of similar to what we're seeing happening over at like Disney, where they went through and, got rid of a bunch of writers in various different shows. Like it's sad because those are the people that fell in love with this, material. They really created this material and made it their own. And now they're just kind of getting cast off. It's scary also to see what this is going to do for the future of the game, because I mean, not only are they now pushing all of that content, but they're pushing even the episodes. Is that what they're calling them now? Instead of doing like seasons, all of the episodic material is now being pushed too.
I would, yeah. I mean, it has to, because it wasn't supposed to come out until after Final Shape. I don't even know what the status is of that. I don't know if they're gonna. I mean, this is the crux of the problem that Sony's going to be facing now, is because this is going to shake up the game, right? People have pre-ordered. I think that they're unhappy with the pre-order sales numbers, would be my guess. But this is literally cause there's going to be a significant swath of the player base that's going to cancel their pre-order, right? Yeah. And the numbers are going to go down. And the other problem that we're going to face is that normally seasons are 3 months, right? We do 4 seasons a year. We do the big expansion with an intro season and then 3 more seasons after that. That's the way the current cycle is. By the 3rd month of a season, content's usually pretty dry. We're in that right now. Like, there's usually some sort of holiday event or like just some fun thing at the back end of the season that's like you can engage with it if you want. There's a little bit of loot, but a lot of it's aesthetic, like we were talking about. You can buy stuff if you like the way it looks, but you don't have to engage with it at all if you don't want to, and it doesn't impact your progress. Mm-hmm. But usually at this point, like, everyone's like kind of bored with the game. Like, we've been playing the same thing for 2 months. We've like gotten all the triumphs. We're going to be in a 6-month season 4.
Yeah. And we're not going to have like that 30th anniversary content to come and rescue us like we did last time.
Like, that was really cool, but like they went back and reintroduced this like new game mode and brought us Yellowhorn, which is like an old gun from D1. It's like, after 9 years of this game, like there's nothing left to overturn, unless the only thing that could maybe save them is if they brought back Wrath of the Machine into D2, because I know everyone was very pissed when that was one of the last raids, which is like the big 6-man end game activity from D1. There was 2 left from D1 that they hadn't brought forward, and they brought back one that the community hated. Now, in my opinion, incredible changes to Crota's End that made it a much better experience in D2. But the fact remains that people wanted that Wrath of the Machine raid, so maybe they could get away if they brought that back in like the 3rd or 4th month.
But they just laid off the majority of their staff, exactly. And we don't even know the final numbers. Like, this isn't
flip the switch and turn it on in D2. Like, there's huge sandbox changes that need to be made to port the game from a D1 experience to a D2. And I don't know. I'm in shambles, as you can tell.
We haven't heard anything from Bungie. We haven't heard anything from them at all, realistically. But even seeing people like Michael Salvatore being laid off as well, it's just it's insane. Like, this is crazy.
Pete Parsons, the CEO, had a comment, but it was sort of a like, "Hey, we love you all. Someone should, if you're out there, go hire these people," kind of thing. And it's like, it's nice, but like, I think people would rather just have had their jobs,
Well, I mean, and you and I both live in areas that are kind of now being affected by rising housing costs. Well, I would say so much more you in your part of the country, but especially in the Pacific Northwest, and I would say even more so in Seattle. Like, we're narrowing it down even further. Seattle is some of the most expensive real estate in all of the country, and it's sad because I'm sure that a lot of these devs are already living kind of paycheck to paycheck just because of the cost of living, regardless of maybe what they get paid at Bungie. And now a lot of these people are not going to know how to pay their bills or how to pay their mortgage, and it's scary. I was laid off during COVID, and I can only imagine what it's like for people now in the middle of. I mean, what do you do? How do you go find another job so quickly? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, man. It's I mean, that's the other thing too, right? Like, the Bungie had like, I might be misquoting the number here, but from what I read earlier, and I'm going from memory, I think they had like 75 listings on their Bungie careers page. Yeah, I think that's down to like 19. So they're like not replacing these people, which also just doesn't make any sense. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm honestly I don't know I don't know what's going to happen with this game. I'm very nervous it's going to end far more abruptly than we all thought it was going to.
Yeah, and I would say that I share that sentiment. It's sad to see this. Hopefully all of this news actually does kind of give a jolt of invigoration, and hopefully the community can kind of finally set down their armor and actually just kind of focus on the game, and maybe through that they'll see the the backlash, or at least Sony, whoever's making this decision, because we just don't know who it is. Maybe they'll make that change. It's sad to me. I still smell cash flow issues. I still smell something kind of business awry there. You just don't make these types of decisions without having to make some existential crisis decisions from a business standpoint. So it's just who knows? I don't know.
I'm just I was sort of on the fence about Final Shape. I'm obsessed with this game. It's the only game I play. It's what we talked about when I was on a couple episodes ago. Like, I don't really play anything else with any sort of regularity. And I hadn't pre-ordered Final Shape. I was eventually going to get around to it, but I just hadn't yet. And now I'm like, I don't want to throw money after this thing because I don't even know if it's going to come out.
I don't think anybody who's on Steam or who's on PlayStation should. I think maybe Xbox is the only exception to that rule, since we don't actually have to pay until the game gets closer to coming out. But I don't know, man. Do you think it's worth $100 right now? Like, it's hard to. It's hard to want to sell anybody on the game.
It's so frustrating because it's a principle thing for me. Like, I want to do it because I want to support the team, the carcass of the team that used to exist that built this thing. But like, I don't know, man. I don't want to. I have no confidence right now. I mean, it's just, I don't understand that. They're like, confidence in Bungie could not have been worse. And then they made all these awesome changes. And they said they were going to make these awesome changes. They got back into like their roots of being in touch with the community. Joe Blackburn's been on like a bunch of Datto streams and like unleashing information and talking to everybody and like making himself available, doing a couple streams. It's like stuff like that is why people, because it's we felt like these guys cared as much about the game as we did because they actually played it, and it was like this just feels like the family business got taken over by a corporate entity, and it's just like, I don't know, it's losing its soul.
But it's hard for me just to want to say that this is somehow still Sony's fault, because, I mean, DMG has kind of indicated that was mismanagement that occurred even, before he left, which that was more than a year ago now. I mean, it's sad because, I mean, I think it was, let me see. Yeah, Wall Street Journal reported last year that as part of the acquisition, they promised that, $1.2 million was paid specifically to keep on everybody that was currently in staff there at Bungie. So, just in totality of the circumstances, man, it's just hard not to look at this and be like, I don't know what the future is going to look like. I don't know if the game's even going to be happening. I mean, it's sad, but I mean, even like a new even Marathon. What'd you say?
No, I just, like, that's not a new playbook, right? Like, I saw someone, there was like the post from October of last year where it was like, no one's going to get released as a part of this acquisition. It's not like a reorganization. And it's like they just kept, this is why I'm saying it the way I'm saying it, is I've seen this go down before, where it's like, you keep everyone on for a year, and then it's like, okay, now we make our decisions, right? And now we can get the EBITDA back on track where it needs to be. And but yeah, anyway, sorry, but yeah, Marathon's another thing. Like dive into
I mean, shit. How can they even how can we even want to support Bungie through Destiny? Because, I mean, let's be real. That's what we're doing with all these pre-orders. That's what we're doing with all these cosmetics and everything. Clearly, that's not necessarily going directly towards this game. Because I mean, I think it's important to note that I haven't seen as much information surrounding the people that were maybe laid off from the Marathon side of the team, but I definitely have seen people who were laid off from the Destiny side of the team. So let's say that they are wanting to put all of their eggs into the basket of Marathon. Even then, man, I mean, 2025 for an extraction shooter, like, that's kind of already a niche genre. I don't really know how that's going to go for them trying to release as a AAA studio, kind of game title release, and even in 2025. It just seems benign to me. It's just weird to see this all take this direction.
I mean, I'm all for like delaying things to get it right. I mean, that's what they did.
Yeah.
Not long well, the expansion prior, the Witch Queen, and the Witch Queen was incredible. And I'm so
Yes.
happy that they took their time and they got it right. They absolutely nailed that expansion. But this is like you can't keep going back to that well, and then they keep doing it, and then it's like it's like 2 steps forward, 5 steps backwards. Every time it's like they keep shooting themselves in the foot. It's so insanely frustrating because you know what this studio is capable of. And look, I mean, it's easy to armchair quarterback and say from our perspective, like, oh, just fix the game. And I know it's not that easy, and I know this. People always like complain about the spaghetti code, but like how this is a homegrown system. The Tiger engine that they built, and it's like. This game has 10 years worth of code built up on it. And so I get it why it's like it's nothing is just like an immediate fix, but holy crap, this is just so far in the other direction of like things just feel like the house is on fire and they just like they have one little pail of water that they just keep throwing on it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it is part of this larger trend that we're seeing with game studios in general. I mean, we saw Epic Games cut 830 jobs according to the Verge article, which was 16% of its workforce back in September. The Last of Us developer Naughty Dog also reportedly cut contractor jobs earlier this month, while Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt Red laid off 100 people in July, looks like, as well. Niantic, 230 staffers from Project Go in June as well. So it's sad to see that this is the trend. I was not expecting somebody like Bungie to be a part of this list. CD Projekt Red, that makes sense for a game that's kind of already past its prime. It's minus, I guess, the newest expansion. There's not a whole lot of people going back to play it. Same thing with Last of Us. These games, it all kind of makes sense, but not Bungie, not a game that is actively being developed, a game that is actively releasing content. It's very strange.
It is. And like we talked about, like they've been purposely quiet, I think, about what teams are working on what project, but like, the game still has to wrap up. It still has this giant finale that they've been dangling in front of us for a decade, and now it's coming behind it. And it just seems like this is the time when you want to be pumping money into the studio, not trying to right-size it. I mean, they're still in this like growth mode, right? I mean, they felt like they were the plucky underdog, like coming to take on the other triple. I mean, they really established themselves as a AAA studio. And now it just feels like, oh my god, we can't make rent every month.
No, for real. Well, I mean, what else do we think, man? I mean, I kind of feel like this is all we know at this point, and this is all we can really talk about it, or talk about when we talk about it. I think honestly, the more we find out over the next few days, you'll probably hear from Matt and I. Let's read. I don't know, man. I mean, I kind of feel like we don't really have much else to say about it at this point. We both are kind of in that state of just we don't know what's going on. We don't know what to expect. We don't know what's going to be happening tomorrow, and it's sad for all the developers who just got laid off today.
Agreed. I hope there's something good here, and I don't that I recognize it being we're having an emotional potentially overreaction to things, but I mean, this isn't just like a couple people. These are some big names at the studio and community facing. I think that's the thing that really is like hitting home is the community managers getting let go.
They've barely been able to establish themselves with the community. You know what I mean? Like it took Deej years. It took DMG years to do that, and it's shit. Well, I mean, we will try to keep everybody updated. The more we find out more information, Chicken and I will try to hop on really quick with these little bits, these little snips, these little quick snips. But yeah, as always, you guys take it easy. Thanks for joining us for our very first quick snips. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to join our Discord. We've got a cool little community over there. And just in case nobody else tells you this week, you matter, you're important, and we care about you.